Shalom, shalom, chavrim. Looks like, well, we got one person in already. I'm not actually announcing we're running live tonight, and that kind of throws everybody off. And of course, I doubt many of you will even get the response that we're here. The title of the broadcast is kind of simplified. And of course, Venezuela, you know, I've got to do some research on Venezuela. I have to tell you the truth. Got to do some research about Venezuela because I'm not really sure how they're playing into what's going on with the New World Order. I am in the process of trying to get the broadcast we loaded for Patreon up and loaded. It's looking like it's not going to happen tonight. I've recorded it. Kind of show you right here. It's in process once again. And of course, Satan is fighting me, trying to keep me from getting this to the public. It's probably about a half-hour long message, maybe a little longer than that. And I am dealing with the Second Amendment. That's one reason why I am not doing it here on Israeli News Live on YouTube, because that's a very touchy topic. And of course, the Florida teacher here that did speak out, very provocative, the words that she says there. But anyway, going into that issue in this broadcast that we're doing on Patreon, I am showing the what they're doing to bring about a new world order. And your Second Amendment rights have everything to do with that. I'm going to go off that picture for a moment, though, just so that we don't attract too much attention there. That's one thing, and I wanted to share a little bit with you guys here, because there's a couple of things I've seen in this growing New World Order that is coming. And of course, the taking away the Second Amendment rights, and then the collapse of the U.S. economy, possibly followed by a war, or maybe simultaneously with Russia, I think is all in the plans. I go into some details of information that I'm aware of. Some you've heard here and there, bits and pieces here on Israeli News Live before. But one thing I did not know as much about, I knew from Rome's position that they are working on internationalizing Jerusalem. I knew that Shimon Peres, along with Prime Minister Netanyahu, even more recently, has been very close working in this direction for internationalizing Jerusalem and it becoming the headquarters for a new world order. But what I did not know, and I owe a debt of gratitude to whoever it was that posted the video, and I forget the name of the video right off the top of my head there. The man was sharing in there from the Jerusalem Post this particular article. I'll go to the title of the article in a moment for you. But just how much Israel will be involved in the New World Order itself. This one little portion here says, as chief of security for the world's information and currency, and with energy independence, Israel stands to gain substantial wealth. It is a position that explains the willingness of Russia and China to negotiate with Israel today. It is also the position that will invoke resentment tomorrow. Feeding that resentment will be a small matter of Iran's determination to annihilate the Jewish state, insomuch as it becomes Israel's neighbor in Syria and Lebanon. Tehran's ambition to destroy Israel becomes all but irresistible for the sake of trade. China does not want this war for the same reason, neither does Russia. Well, Russia actually, though, came out earlier in the year here and said to Israel, if Iran attacks Israel, we will take and we'll have your back. Well, that's kind of a little change. And of course, I mentioned the other day, I'm getting a little bit suspicious about some of the things that Russia has been doing. Not that I'm not against the idea of Iran leaving Syria or the Hezbollah leaving Syria, but just something seemed to be amiss with this whole situation that's happening there in Syria. And of course, The idea of taking down Iran by Israel, the Saudis, the US, etc., as I mentioned to you guys, I really believe has more to do with the Silk Road than anything else. Well, the Silk Road is also playing a major part of the New World Order, which only stands to reason because why? Well, the Silk Road was very well prominent during the Roman Empire. And after all, it is a revived Roman Empire that is building the New World Order. And so that's exactly what we have going on. Well, something come up to my mind, and I wanted to share this with you guys because I'm seeing some major transformations with the situation in Ukraine. We have an article as of right now. This is on Russian news, ria.ru, that's speaking here about that Kiev is getting ready to do a new offensive on Donetsk. Actually, when you see it on Twitter, they're showing a massive line of tanks headed in that direction. So they're getting ready to do a new offensive there. Of course, Russia's not going to stand by and allow these people to be just obliterated. But at the same token, Crimea comes into mind. I remember a lady that was from Crimea I spoke with at length one day in a private interview and asked her thoughts about Crimea. She says, well, it was no surprise to her that Russia would take Crimea because she said we were having our passports changed to Russian passports probably 10 years before this war took place and Russia took Crimea back. I always did stand, though, with the fact that Crimea was part of Russia originally. And, of course, historically, the administrative part of Crimea was handed over to Ukraine back during the Soviet era. So it wasn't surprising for me to Russia to take this part back and also to prevent the neo-Nazis from killing off the Ukrainians there. But there's more of a reason for this Crimea being taken, and specifically for the fact that Putin built the bridge from the mainland of Russia to Crimea. And I stumbled across that tonight as I was working, still doing the searches about the Silk Road, because this is so much as part of the New World Order, what's going on, and so many people are missing the big picture of this. And it's new to me, so I'm also learning myself. It says right here, time will tell if Russian president who drove so masterfully across what will certainly be remembered as the crowning achievement of his rule will realize this and build bridges in less areas less symbolic to national territorial integrity. If not, then maybe Chinese and perhaps even Japanese companies with whom Rostovador is now supposedly planning to sign a concession agreement will be the real builders of the bridges in the Arctic. Looking forward to that moment, one Chinese business leader has claimed that the bridge to Yatsuk will be the continuation of the Great Silk Road. So there's always something coming up. This Silk Road and the New World Order and this initiative, and even Israel being involved with the cryptocurrency that will be used. As they say, Bitcoin was only put out there to see how the public would react. And of course, when they come with a cryptocurrency for this New World Order, which, by the way, BRICS is the New World Order getting geared up, by the way. And I go into this on Patreon, in our video on Patreon, because of the inside information that I had about BRICS. I've shared it here with you guys on Israeli News Live before, but because of the Second Amendment, what's coming, what I believe is going to happen in America, and actually all this unrest around the world, even Venezuela. And the reason why the U.S., I think, is wanting to topple the government there is because you got to remember, part of a New World Order. Brazil is already in the BRICS. So Venezuela, something's got to change there. Don't really know the full extent of these things, just like in South Africa. South Africa, when they became part of the BRICS community, when it was only BRIC, and then South Africa joined. It was interesting. Up until that time, there was not much talk about the Palestinians or a Palestinian state amongst the BRICS leaders. But when South Africa joined, then that became an issue. Well, why? Well, I can tell you why. Because, as I knew, and I've shared with you guys before, there was a certain priest from South Africa that shared with a friend of ours on Israeli News Live that the Golan would be given over to the Palestinians in a two-state solution in the near future. Now, that sister was up in arms over this. But he said, I won't argue with you. You wait and see. You will see what will happen. Well, when South Africa joined up with the BRICS organization there, this new movement of course, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and now South Africa, that's when we've seen the change about the status of the Palestinians, also part of a new world order. And the Vatican kind of pushes that very much so because, after all, the prophecy in Daniel says they come up strong with a small people. And that's exactly what's happening today. So, by the way, the Paulie's Eating Show, Brother Steve, I knew that the Bitcoin was part of the New World. Yes, I think the Bitcoin was actually a trial run. They're going to have a totally different cryptocurrency. And different governments have been talking about this. Even in the Czech Republic, they were talking about going cashless by 2018. Which, ironically, in the video that I saw that someone had sent to us there, the guy shows an image of it's like a Bitcoin with the year 2018, but it was like 30 years ago, and the US dollar's burning. I think their objective was 2018. And this is why we see a major movement in the US. And by the way, right now there's a major shooting down in Panama City, Florida, going on that I saw just before coming on air here. Some guy losing it at an apartment complex has fired almost 100 rounds, according to early reports that are coming out right now on Twitter. So I'm going to be really looking, though, deeper on these issues here. And like I said, I go into a little bit more of the verbiage on Patreon .com/Israeli News Live, those that do want to see that broadcast. I am having trouble loading that video, so we're reprocessing that again here. I lowered the quality of the video to see if maybe that will resolve the issue. But it looks like it won't be loaded till tomorrow regardless, because it's already, I guess it's after midnight here, about 12:30 in the, getting close to 1 o'clock in the morning here. So it's not going to, I won't be, by the time it loads here, and then we try to load it up to the server and then paste it into Patreon, it'll be in the morning before I can do that. Maybe super late night your time, maybe you're 1 o'clock in the morning when we get it over on Patreon there. But I do share some very interesting things. I use names in here that I'm going to try to avoid on our broadcast here. I will say, though, the video I did the other day, I just felt like I had to take the risk. I know it was a very inflammatory video, but I had to take the risk because you guys have got to know the truth. We can't hide this no more. And, we've got to get the word out to people, to warn people about how serious things are in this world. So anyway, thank you for all of you that are doing the thumbs up here. It's really, it probably drives Google crazy. That's another New World Order tool. You don't believe it? After my videos process, you watch it, and then you see what follows after me. All the propagandists that are totally against me are intentionally loaded in behind my own videos just to try to get you guys convinced that, well, Steve's a nutcase. I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Erev Tov. Thank you, moderators, again for this evening. And I'm about wore out. Shalom, shalom.